Hi there, my name is Christine Glover and I'm a USA Today best-selling author, but I wasn't always one, and now I'm here on YouTube talking to you about writing and books I love to read, books I've written, craft, anything you want. This week I'm discussing how people write and how they approach their writing. Not everyone tackles their writing projects the same way, nor does everybody teach the same way, nor does everybody learn the same way. Today I'm discussing 3 different schools of thought about writing a novel. In my case, a romance novel. So there's plotting, pantsing, or a hybrid of both. I think it varies from person to person. It varies from book to book sometimes. So there's just very many different ways to approach our writing. Now, a true plotter is someone who has an outline, a very detailed outline. J.R. Ward once did an author talk with her critique partner, writing partner, and they both have very different ways of approaching their writing. Her critique partner's a let it simmer, let it go, kind of pantsy, plots it away, whereas J.R. Ward has a very strict, we're going to plot this out from beginning to end, we're going to go through these steps, and she sticks to it religiously. It's a great talk. I wish I still had it. I might have it on one of my old MP3s. It was from a very long time ago, but I really liked it. So a plotter is going to be someone who outlines, who just lives to figure out every turning point in the story. They do a lot of pre-writing, a lot of character development. They figure out all the twists and turns before they even sit down to write. And there's a lot of good in doing that. Because when you do that, you're not going to go into the story not knowing where you're going with the story. You have a direction, you have a map, you have a roadmap of turning points, which I will discuss in another YouTube video and go into more depth in. You're going to have a way to approach your writing that gives you confidence whenever you sit down, or at least it might. There are some pitfalls. I have a critique partner, Pam Montavani, who writes literally by the seat of her pants and is a total pantser, and she likes the magic moments. And sometimes when you get bogged down in the plot and the outline and sticking to it no matter what, you might lose a special magical moment that could drive the story in a much better, more exciting direction with the characters and in general towards the, in my world, the happily ever after. So you don't want to overwhelm yourself with too much plotting and then not be able to enjoy the process of writing to where you really explore and develop the story as it organically unfolds. So I had when I first started writing, I'm the perfect example of someone who's done it both ways, plotting and pantsing. My very first story that I ever wrote years ago that will never see the light of day, I wrote it literally by the seat of my pants. I had no idea what I was doing. I just decided I was going to write a romance, and that was all there was to it. I wrote 2 single-space pages a day for ever so many months. Then I put it together, and then I figured out who to send it to because I didn't know diddly about that. And that's how I found out about different writing organizations. And then I was like, okay, this book needs help. I don't know how to plot a book. So then I got a book, How to Plot a Romance Novel for Dummies, kind of one of the, was not necessarily the book, but it was a book that taught you how to plot the story from beginning to end in the romance genre. So I did that with my second book, to the letter. I followed it. But I lost sight of the magic moments. That book has since been revised, I don't know how many times, entered into contests, nearly made it to the publishing world, and I actually have it redone, and I'm gonna actually put it out as an indie book in the future. It's a little bit older, it's from 2007, so it's 13 years old now, but you know, I like the story and I like the concept and I had fun writing it, but I lost sight of the magic moments when I tried too hard to stick to the script that I had made for every scene, every chapter, it was just too regimented for me. And that's saying a lot because I like structure, as you know, like I like having a schedule, I like knowing what my boundaries are, but I like to have kind of what I like to call a flexible schedule, a flexible boundary line, because things can change. So that brings us to number 2, that is the pantser. Pantser is the second way that you could possibly write, like my critique partner pretty much only pantses. She does some pre-writing, some character. We both come up with names for the characters. We both talk a little bit about the direction of the story. The problem with doing that is if you're not really a strong conflict person, a conflict writer, that can get lost in the writing of the story. So, with a pantser, you kind of have a general idea of the story. You know who your characters are. You're probably more character driven. It feels more creative. It's less restrictive. You're not stuck with these, set things that you have to hit. You're not worrying about turning points. You're not worrying about beginning, middle, and end. You're not worrying about mirror moments. You're just writing the story, and the story just sort of unfolds for you. That can lead you down rabbit holes, which is a pitfall, or it can lead you to really great magical places, which is a plus. So, one of the best things about pantsing is you have some freedom to explore different avenues, and then you can always go back and fix it later. That's my mantra. Never fall in love with your first draft. I talked about that in my revision workshop, Popcorn, in one of my other videos. I'll drop the link to that below. But yeah, definitely it's more freeing, more relaxing. Some of the pitfalls are you might have more revisions, but I tend to have a lot of revisions regardless of how I try. You can lose threads of the story, like you might not remember what you did in chapter 1 may not be carried through the entire story. It might be like, oh, you forgot to pick up that thread and carry it all the way through the story. And so that's a problem. And somebody that reads for you that you trust will be able to point that out to you, and then you can fix it. Everything is fixable in my world. And you may not have all the character details locked down. Like the beginning of page 1, you might have a blue-eyed heroine, and at the end of the book you might have a brown-eyed heroine, or you might have a heroine with corkscrew curls at the beginning of the book, and at the end of the book you might have a heroine that has straight silky hair. Who knows? So there's things that you can drop and then you'll have to go back and fix. So those are basically I think the pitfalls of pantsing. Right now I am actually pantsing a novella. I decided to just go with it because hello, the world is upside down, so why not go for it? And the last time I tried to stick to my loose plotting style, I still had a massive revision anyways, because I'm still learning this genre a little bit better, and it required a lot of cutting, a lot of work. So I thought, well, this time I'm just gonna write whatever comes to me and see how I can fix it later, and then see what my critique partners and my editors have to say about it when I get it to that point. Okay, so then that brings me to the third way of approaching writing, which is a hybrid way where you're a plotter slash pantser, or in my world, you're a plotter, pantser, fixer-upper. That's me, plotter, pantser, fixer-upper, plotter, pantser, fixer-upper. So basically when you're a plotter, pantser, you kind of do a hybrid of both things. You might do some pre-writing, you might have a lot of character sheets developed to go into the story. You might have worked out the goal, motivation, and conflict of the story. You might have figured out, what the beginning, the middle, and the end, some of the basic turning points, what I like to call the tent poles of the story are, so that you have a place to drive to. You have kind of a loose roadmap, but you're okay with, oh, suddenly this happened and this came up on halfway through the book, and then you realize, ooh, that's really important. So then you stop and you go back and you layer that back in. I'm a big proponent of layering. I tend to do that quite a bit. Like my first drafts are really bad. There's no other way of putting it. You would never want to read my first draft, but by the time I get it polished, I think it's a decent little story. One of the ways that I tend to work with plotter pantsing method is I use a beat sheet, which I have taken from Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, and I've just kind of converted that screenwriting beat sheet into something that I can use as a romance author. And it works pretty well for me, and I've played with it here and there. And the thing that's nice about it is it doesn't have to be fully filled out. You can leave gaps there. You don't have to worry about hitting every mark in the beat sheet. It just gives you a place to start. Another thing some people do is write the blurb first, because that kind of gives them a little mini map to work with. And another thing that you could do is also do a synopsis, like just a beginning, middle, end synopsis with the characters, what they want, what's standing in their way of getting what they want, and how they end up getting it, why they want it. So, you can have more different tools in your box when you're a plotter, pantser, fixer-upper like me. I think a lot of writers are kind of somewhere in the middle, or they go back and forth. Different books call for different reactions to them. I don't know how to explain that really. If you're an author or a writer, you know what I'm talking about. Some books are easier to write than others. Some books are easier to revise than others. We all have dog books that want to kill us, and we want to kill the characters in the books. Like my last revision was really tough, and I really fought hard for that story, and it was a dog. It was tough, and I ended up getting it done and sent it off its merry little way, and now I have another pass to do on it, and I will get to that next week because it's the second book in my new series, the Crush series, Covert Rescuers Undercover Shield. Some of the pitfalls with being a plotter pantser is you can still lose threads, because you're trying to get through the story and you might forget some things if you don't have it all in one like nice little tidy place. Like I like using Scrivener because everything is in there that I need. You may switch to Panther if you're trying to plot a little bit more. You kind of go back and forth, but it's not really a pitfall. It's more like you're kind of like all over the map on how you're approaching the story. You're kind of doing like oh, I'm stuck here and I don't know what to write next, so I'm just gonna make some notes for the next few scenes. I've been doing that a lot. Even though I'm trying to pants, I'm still sort of kind of outlining ahead, so I have a little mini roadmap of where I want to drive the story to. And you'll still need to do revisions. I'm living proof of revision. I cannot tell you how many passes I do on books. It's kind of frightening. I'm not a linear writer, so there's just no way I go back and forth. I'm just not perfect at the first go round. So like again, the first book I ever wrote was a pants out book. It never got published. I loved the story, but it was the story that got me to the end. I wrote my very first book. Then I had the overplotted book, which, you know, still required multiple rewrites and still is in my back of my brain going, yay, let's do me again so I can write you again and maybe get you published, and that would be fun. And then the combo pantser is usually the way I go, and I prefer kind of going back and forth. I like having a lot of different options available in my toolbox, as we like to call it. So, you know what, just wanted to share the 3 different kinds of basic types of writers there are with you. I will be going more deeper into turning points, which I call tent poles sometimes. In future videos, I'd like to go deeper into the romance subgenre, where we're looking at also the emotional turning points of the story, which I think are very important, almost more important than the external drivers in a romance. I think the emotional connection that the reader makes is very important. So right now I'm just wondering, what kind of writer are you? How do you approach your books? Do you use the same kind of approach every time, or do you switch back and forth? Is every book a new experience for you? How do you define yourself as far as plotting, pantsing, or maybe being a hybrid of both? So drop a comment and I will be happy to chat with you about it. I love hearing from people. I'm very social, so I would love to hear from you on the YouTube channel. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you like my series and you want to learn more about craft and be inspired to write, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I hope you have a great day and that you're all safe and happy writing.